Now, all right. So this is it. We are actually recording the Misinformed Truth podcast. All right,
with a new format.
with the new format. So let's do the classic intro. Hello, everyone. I am Manveer, one of the co-hosts of the Misinformed Truth podcast, and you are hearing from Lamar right now, who is my other co-host, my only other co-host, coming
Yep.
live from
From
where?
the,
Your house?
yep. From the other end of the tri-state area, we are no longer in the
The
same
Tri-City
building.
area.
We are like about 10 miles away, I guess.
Yeah. Alrighty. So let's first do some housekeeping stuff. Of course, this podcast is going to be on YouTube. I'm going to full send it on YouTube unedited unless we have some sort of interruptions or anything like that. And even then, I'll probably still put it up on YouTube. So we're not going to edit much of it. And the audio will be on, your favorite streaming platform, your audio streaming platform. Lamar, you have that down, right?
Yes, we actually have it down this time. This next podcast will be on podcasts, not just YouTube.
Perfect. That's what we want to hear. Okay, so and then
It's funny, I was so lazy about it, but then I realized it only takes like an hour at most to set this all up.
right,
So
right.
I don't know why I was being lagging behind.
Um, what else? Let me think.
So let's just take it easy, man. I
Yeah.
mean, we don't have to plan this out. Let's, go as is. What's been going on this week, or what happened just these past couple days?
Uh, well, yeah. I mean, let's just get into it personally. How we've been dealing with the COVID-19 epidemic. So one thing I've used to pass the time is I've been streaming on Twitch, which is a streaming platform, and basically I've been doing like DJ sets and stuff like that, just to like kind of, I can't go out and have fun or party or whatever, so I kind of do the party here, and that's kind of a fun experience for me. I've been slowly growing up in audience. I started with 3 followers, now I'm on 16, and which is really really exciting. So yeah, I just stream there, along with just learning how to make music, just trying to be as productive as possible, and obviously dealing with schoolwork. What have you been doing to pass the time? I know you actually have to work from home, so
Well,
that's the big chunk of your time gone right there.
yeah, I mean, I don't think our audience knows, but for me, I've been working already at a place that lets me work remotely for the most part. Before COVID-19 hit, I was already working 3 days from home. So the only difference now is I'm working 5 days from home now. So not that much of a significant difference for me. I did get a dog during the shelter in place because I'm like, this is the perfect time because, I'm at home. I can actually be with him, train with him. So I'm looking forward to that. But besides that, I've been just helping out my family a little bit. They have their own small business. Obviously, small businesses have been impacted a lot by the coronavirus, especially
Hmm.
if you're a non-essential place and you have to close down. So I've been helping my dad get some loans. Surprisingly, the government in that last relief package did pass some decent loans for small businesses. So the only question is when it's going to be flushed out. They've already taken applications, but the problem is the Federal Reserve hasn't given that much guidance for uh, how to distribute it among the large banks. So hopefully, as soon as the Federal Reserve gives those guidances, we can actually start getting those loans. So people like my family and families around this country can actually start taking care of themselves.
Um, you know, Initially my dad's small business was also affected. I believe it was March 17th or 18th where the
Mm.
shelter in place law was kind of into effect. At least I wouldn't say law, but more the order from the governor. And what ended up happening was basically my dad had to close down his shop, but then the firm that he uses to get clients for his CNC sheet metaling shop, they got in touch with a medical supply company, and the way that's how he's been going back to the factory. He's deemed essential because he's helping make parts for specific medical supplies that are necessary.
Mhm.
He did mention ventilators, but he's not making them. He's making specific precision tools, not tools, I would say parts for those ventilators and other different medical equipment like monitoring and whatever, like anything proprietary special they usually get from China and order in multiple bulk. They're sourcing from local vendors like my dad. He hasn't been like crazy busy. In the beginning, he was initially busy, like 12-hour days and stuff like that. But now he's just straight up 9 to 5 situation where he just comes back home around like he just came back home like 15 minutes ago, so like just around like 6 o'clock. So um yeah, pretty much that's what we've been going through. My mom, she's at the
And
DMV, and yeah, she's been definitely affected in terms of the COVID-19. I mean, DMV has changed its policy like from top to bottom of what they offer and don't offer and how many people they allow. It's really, really crazy, honestly.
And just PSA, if you know, for all our audience members who may be listening, if you are going through financial hardships right now, as we've just mentioned, if your families involved with a small business, check out those loans on the SBA website. There are really good loans, but check up on it quickly because those loans are probably going to
What's the
disappear.
website URL?
The SBA, Small Business Administration.
Small Business Administration. So what is the Small Business Administration doing?
So they're basically taking applications for some loans, such as the emergency disaster loan. That's like a free $10,000 that they're giving out to small businesses that have existed for 1 year. And there's also a different loan known as the PPP. I think it's a payroll program something. I'm not sure what the acronym stands for, but it's the PPP loan. That one's being done by banks, but it's being like administered by the SBA, so you'd go directly to your bank. But you got to go on it ASAP because that's like the most popular one right now. And there's already a huge line of people who have already applied online. So go to your like respective lenders, bank, their website, and search up PPP loan, and that will hopefully give you about 2.5 times what your monthly payroll is. And if you spend it on payroll, rent, and utilities, like the basic stuff, it's totally forgiven. You don't even have to pay the loan back. But even if you do spend on other things, then it's a very low interest loan for your business.
That's awesome. So the Small Business Administration website, it's just sba.gov. And the first thing you see is this coronavirus small business guidance.
Yeah, it's all the way at the very top, so you can't miss it.
Yeah, it says like a little yellow banner that says click here.
And also, if your family has any mortgages, call your mortgage company. Most companies are willing to suspend payments for about 3 months to potentially even a year. So obviously that can be a big relief too.
Definitely. Let me see. Quite a little hiccup here. Let me try and actually get the website up here. And this is also a test for other stuff we need to also get. So like say if we want to share something with them, let's see how we can do that. So if we go to Chrome, Small Business Administration, for some reason it is not popping up for me, which is weird. Yeah, okay, I see it. Okay. That is going to be interesting. We can't pull up anything. That is interesting.
That's good. I mean, we already have a lot of content that doesn't really even need any like articles to be brought up on the sidelines.
Yeah, I wish it would work.
That's okay. I mean, it's a work in progress. It's the first time we're doing this format, so hopefully we'll master it for next time.
Right. Okay. So now we need to talk about the big thing that's kind of motivating me to do this. So Bernie dropped out. A lot. When did we really start this podcast? I want to say like middle of last year, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. It was during the primary season, yeah.
And we did it because we believed that there was going to be a lot to be covered. And we believe that in terms of our progressive politics, we can offer analysis, not just coming from a debate background, but on a just understanding what we learned and the mistakes we made in 2016. We could just figure out better on how to analyze and predict political calculations because mainstream media got it so wrong. And the DNC got it so wrong. And so many establishment media got it wrong. And that's why we created the podcast because we didn't have the crazy reaction that everyone else did. We were kind of suspecting a little bit, of what was going on. And we thought that, we had to talk to our friends. We had to talk to our family. And they liked what we both had to say on both sides. And we thought like maybe we have something to contribute. So we created this podcast to try and assess that. But now that Bernie's gone, I did not see that coming. I thought he would take it all the way to the convention. We had multiple theories. Right. So Lamar was actually the most skeptical one to think that Bernie would probably not win. So give me your initial gut reaction of when you heard the news. Like, what were you feeling? What was your mood at that time?
Well, it did happen yesterday, just for clarification, and I wasn't necessarily shocked because he had effectively ended his campaign a couple weeks prior. And what I mean by that is, if you looked at his actual website where they were taking contributions, it's explicitly stated that all the money that you would contribute would not even go to the campaign. It would actually be going towards organizations combating coronavirus. And while that is very noble of any campaign to do, effectively when you're doing that, you're basically putting the towel. Like no other campaign would actually legitimately be doing that unless they were not taking the campaign seriously. So at that point, I knew that he had, in essence, decided that the campaign was over. But again, he did officially suspend the campaign yesterday. But beyond that, one of the things that I'd heard regarding the rumors of why he would stay in the race, even if it wasn't possible to pick up the delegate lead ahead of Biden, was that he wanted to put pressure on the DNC to rack up a bunch of delegates so that he would have more influence on the DNC convention, because the more delegates you have, the more uh, uh, I guess advantages you have in terms of negotiating the Democratic policy agenda for the next following cycle. So that's where he wanted to put his influence. And on top of that, I think he was also leveraging his bets on putting his potential successor to speak at the DNC convention. But I don't even know if there's going to be a DNC convention anymore because of the coronavirus. They were saying that it already did get pushed back, but now they're saying it might not even happen. It might be an online thing. But in that scenario where it did happen, I think Bernie was hedging to give that person a platform so that they could run either in 2024 or in 2028, depending on the situation. And now I don't even think that's going to happen, which is why I think Bernie now decided to put in the towel.
Yeah, I think when I watched his message on Twitter, I was I was mixed. I think a lot of the message was about like, look at what we've done, look at how far we've come, and we still have work to do. It was still incredibly vague. I don't know if he's going to pull a 2016 where, uh, sorry, I don't know if he's going to pull that same like 2016 move where he was basically saying that, oh, vote for Hillary, but not a ringing endorsement of Hillary. But I think I'm not so sure what he wanted out of us, the Bernie supporters. I think there was unclarity in his campaign video. I think he talks about generally, the revolution needs to continue, the work needs to be done, and this, that, and the third. But the one thing that bothered me was there was not a clear alignment on whether or not he wanted his voters to go to Biden. And I think that's very important because there's a massive discussion happening on the left where it's like people, there's like almost three angles to this. You have the Biden supporters who are obviously not rejoicing, actually going out of their way. So you have the Biden supporter right here, you have the Bernie supporter right here, and you had the centrist kind of in the middle, because the centrist who neither is too big on Biden, they were probably like a Warren or a Buttigieg supporter who was like aligning towards Bernie, and then you had the Biden supporter, and basically the Biden supporter splits into two purviews. The one that is like, okay, these are the policies that we can align ourselves with Bernie supporters on. Let's capture the Bernie base. The other Biden supporter exists as like, okay, well, screw you. This is the primary process. And if your guy didn't win, that's not on us, right? We voted for Biden. We want Biden. And they don't really care to capture the Bernie base. And then you have Bernie supporters who are basically fractured, or a large majority of them, a surprising majority of them are like, look, convince me to vote for Biden. Or they're just basically like, never Biden. And then you have the other wing where it's like the kind of small realists were like, look, we need a win. We as progressive platform need a win. And then we have the middle where it's like, look, they're probably going to vote for Biden, but they're not happy about it. The middle doesn't really matter. There's not many there, but it's basically the fight between the Biden supporters who are trying to rally Bernie people to their side. And then you have the fight of Bernie people trying to rally the Bernie supporters to Biden's side, right? You have these two small concentric circles or intersecting circles, Venn diagram style. You have those two circles basically trying to hold shit together. and then you have the large swaths of the base of Biden and Bernie that can't stand each other. Mainly
No,
because
I completely agree, but
right, right.
it's funny because I already know what's going to happen. Like in a couple days, right now, surprisingly, Biden is actually in the lead in the national polls against Trump, and even in a bunch of key swing states, he's actually in the lead against Trump, surprisingly. But right now, obviously, Bernie has not endorsed Biden, but we don't know whether or not he'll endorse him either. We don't know if it's going to be a repeat of 2016. But at the same time, if the media does start to go after Bernie for not endorsing Biden, like within the next couple of days or even the next weeks, I'm going to be shocked because at the same time, you know who else has endorsed Biden at this point? Elizabeth Warren. I don't understand why. Again, I understand that she was not a forceful foe as much as Bernie was, but she still had a good 10% of like the vote in those states, which I feel is weird that we're neglecting that 10%, but we're not neglecting the Bernie support.
My
But
thing, yeah.
to be one little caveat though, Warren did say some positive things, but again, that was just a few days ago, and it wasn't an official endorsement. But and it's also weird too. I think there's still rumors going around that the Biden team is considering her as a VP pick, but it seems weird to me that you're considering someone as a VP pick when they haven't even endorsed you yet. So that's kind of surprising in my book.
No, I definitely agree there, and I think Warren not endorsing Biden just yet, at least, shows that she may not have been as evil or as snake-like as the alternative media like us put her out to be. And I think here's why. I think Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, all these people who came out in support of Biden aligned themselves with the establishment and made them persona non grata for all Bernie supporters. And also, I think I would be hard pressed to find that all these people who align themselves with Biden when they dropped out, the Democratic candidates, don't find themselves in positions within the cabinet, or at least within the Biden administration. So
No, of course.
my big thing with Warren and Bernie is that, look, if they aren't immediately forsaking their political future by supporting Biden, um, it's one of two things in my opinion. Either they're waiting for temperature to cool down because people are having the initial reaction like we are right now, and then when the stakes are high, when the November election is near and people are aware of the polls, then they would probably support Biden. I would even assume Carter or Obama to come out of the woodwork and give their full endorsement for the nominee, which would be Biden. At that point, there is a rational justification for majority of Bernie's base to be like, look, he's in the worst possible situation in their eyes. This is what's the rational decision, which would be to back the nominee. But I think,
Uh,
but
Go
I
ahead.
think
Go ahead.
the second option is that the reason why Bernie and Warren aren't doing this is because they're hedging their bets for something else. Um, I look, we said this 4 years ago. I don't think Bernie has it in him to run in 2020, and he did, and he has shown more mental acuity than Biden. Great. I don't know if he's planning on running in 2024. I think it would be
Oh hell no,
yeah.
no, no! It's definitely not going to happen in
So
2024. Like
I
he's
don't
going to be
know.
too.
So then it has to be the first option where he's waiting for people to his base to get over the initial gut reaction. And if so, it's a very very smart political move. I think it's incredibly prudent. I think the reason why Bernie has gotten so far and the other candidates have not with the same exact platform is because he's got good people, on his campaign. And if they've advised him to do this, I think this is an incredibly smart move. I think the temperatures and emotions will calm down, and I think eventually people will see the light. But I'm just seeing some stupid comments that we could talk about later. But give me your initial thoughts about, like, how do you feel Bernie and Warren not endorsing Biden? Like, what is your speculation, and in general, what is your emotional reaction? Because we are just reacting to this live.
Well, when it comes to lack of endorsement, it does make sense because even in 2016, Bernie didn't immediately endorse Clinton. He did take a couple days, and that's perfectly okay. And he did end up doing a bunch of rallies for Clinton, way more than Clinton ever did for Obama in 2008. So I think in terms of the effort, Bernie did much more than was needed to be. In terms of timeline of when he could have dropped out, that's questionable. But I mean, he put in the effort and showed that he was willing to support Clinton to the very end. Uh, with this time with Joe Biden, I don't know. I feel like things are a little different because in 2016 there was obviously the controversy among the superdelegates casting their votes before a single vote was casted, and there were reforms this time in 2020, so that wasn't happened. But even now, it's very clear that there was media bias, and I can't. Uh, I have to believe that in Bernie's mind, he's taken into account that media bias and how it was overwhelming and why he had to drop out in the first place. I mean, how does 2 weeks go by where an article breaks that your political opponent may have potentially committed rape and none of the mainstream news covers it? The only answer is that there's complete media blackout on this issue. And I don't want people telling me
No,
that
no, no,
this
no.
issue about Tara Reid.
Look.
Go ahead.
I think here's the thing. I think COVID-19 is a huge reason why. But I
No,
do.
no, I get you right. But
Yeah.
again, we talked about this. I can understand. Maybe it's not going to dominate the news like it did with the Kavanaugh.
Right.
But in this situation, I would like it if one damn article was written by CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, not like one article. Like I literally searched 100 times. If you look and search, there's nothing. Washington Post, New York Times, CNN, MSNBC. None
By
of
the way,
those
I haven't done
mainstream.
any research on whether or not those outlets have created those articles. So if Lamar is putting his foot in his mouth, I can't
Oh,
stand
you
by
can
that.
go ahead. You can do it.
So, okay. So the viewers will check. I'll check too after this. But
As of today, of the 9th of April, nothing has been written by those outlets.
hmm.
The only biggest outlets that did anything were Yahoo News, Vox, the
uh,
Huffington Post,
bastion of
and
truth and
the one who broke it was The Intercept. And again, The Intercept and specifically Ryan Grimm, the one who broke it, was the same journalist who broke the Kavanaugh thing. So no one can claim it's a credibility thing because it's literally the same outlet and same writer who broke the previous story of the Kavanaugh.
bro, you've been right. The Intercept has been, in terms of putting out some raw ass articles. The Intercept also put out an article that like opened my fucking eyes. That like we've been selling hundreds of millions of PPE, which is uh, the protective gear that hospital workers need to deal with coronavirus. We've been selling a bunch of those units abroad. Like we haven't halted that or anything. Trump put a ban on that only 5 days ago, and they've been doing it all of March, most of April, and pretty much all of February as well. Because
Yeah, I totally agree. I love The Intercept. I mean, not even that. Like, yeah, they create really good content in general. But I was actually trying to even buy some merchandise the other day of The Intercept, but
oh my,
unfortunately, you can only get it if you're if you're a subscriber, and it's like a one-time thing. Like, so I'm like, okay, I guess I'll wait till one day open a merch store, but I guess it's not gonna happen for a while.
yeah,
But no, really great content. Lee Fang is another great author at The Intercept. I really like his work there, and obviously Ryan Grimm, who's always on the Rising, which is a show on the Hills YouTube channel. He's always there, not every day, but like I think once a week he has an appearance there. So really great work by all of them there. But
no, yeah,
so
definitely,
going back to what I was initially saying, I was
right.
saying if the mainstream media is ignoring that your main political opponent has a potential rape allegation, no one's not even writing one article about it. There's no way you can win. Like everything was pushed against you from the very beginning. There's no way to pull out of this at this point.
I think I think every outlet that talked about how Trump has a massive propaganda media propaganda war machine, which is, One America News and Fox News in 2016, which were heavily pushing for Trump and basically lying about a lot of stuff in order to make sure he got elected. I think that's what we're seeing here with Biden. It's that there's a massive media machine behind Biden in order to stop him from ever facing any real challenge when it comes to from Bernie. Now, my biggest thing is I am in I'm in the same political realm in social media terms of a lot of hardcore leftists who are on the Bernie side. I'm not talking about leftists as in like Antifa, but not Antifa, but like not even Antifa light, more like just all the politics of kind of hardcore leftists, which is basically all of Bernie's platform and then some more. And basically,
But before you go any further, Manveer,
Yeah.
I just want to clarify to our audience that, again, me and Manveer are based in California, so we do have that privilege of being able to like not vote for Biden because
right.
at the end of the day, California is going to vote
And
for
I'll get to
the
that. I'll get to
Democratic
that.
person regardless.
And
Go ahead.
I'm not coughing because I have COVID. My sister is making pasta downstairs, and if she's left unintended, she will overspice every food and just make it unedible. But so Jesus fucking Christ, man, how much spice do you need in a pasta? There's already in the sauce. Never mind.
Yeah, at least she makes it healthy. My mom will covers it in oil and douses it in oil. Like
God.
I'm gonna die of a heart attack in the future because of that.
It's yeah. We all the hot air goes upstairs, so I smell everything. So the amount of privilege it takes. So I want to talk about a few things, but the first thing is the amount of privilege it takes to say that you're not going to vote for Bernie. So one thing is saying that, okay, I'm in California. Let me remind you that California went for Bernie hard, pretty hard, and many of these people who are saying that I'm going to write in Bernie are based in California. So just imagine if every single voter who voted for Bernie in the primary goes out and writes in Bernie. I'm not saying that this is what's going to happen. I'm saying that if everyone adopted that mentality, then Biden's not going to get California in the general, right? And obviously there's a super hypothetical. That is high pathetical, like emphasis on pathetic. That's probably not going to happen. But that can, not that it's going to happen. Let me backtrack a bit. I think it's dangerous to say that never Biden. I'm never going to vote for Biden. I'm not going to vote for I want to be able to look a rapist, like not a rapist, but a rape victim in the eye and have a conversation with them without knowing the fact that I voted for Biden. And I think that, look, there were genuine victims of sexual assault commenting under those posts saying that, look, I hear you. And this was also on Twitter, as I saw, that Trump is worse. Trump put people in cages. Trump denied healthcare access during a pandemic in the ACA website. Trump is responsible for aggravating Iran to the point where we all thought and the market thought that we were going to go into World War III. Like, Trump has mishandled the COVID-19 crisis. Trump has basically allowed the financial markets to be deregulated significantly. Trump is, if elected, will 100% overturn Roe v. Wade, which will backtrack so much work that has been done to progress women's rights. And
so here's the thing.
Go
So
ahead.
like I do hear that people are bringing up those examples. Like these are the main arguments I'm hearing are Supreme Court justice nominees and immigration.
Yeah.
When it comes to electing Biden over Trump.
Right.
But think about the SCOTUS. This is the guy who was okay and indifferent to putting Clarence Thomas there. Like, and he's one of the most conservative people on the bench right now. And when it comes to immigration, let's not forget, as of this time, the Obama administration deported way more people than the Trump administration ever did. So
No.
again, like
that's not okay. Stop.
I know over 8 years versus 4 years. That's
Not
why
only
I'm
over
saying
8 years, I would say because the net immigration to Mexico is zero, because also people are going back. And I think the opportunity for Trump isn't there. Trust me, if the numbers were exactly the same in the Obama administration, we would see Trump be more aggressive. And yes, Trump, maybe not on the raw statistical data that has required the number of people to be sent back through ICE, but the aggressiveness, the increase in budget, the expanding of presidential authority via ICE, the raids that have happened are nowhere near what was in the Obama administration. Definitely there were, but nowhere near the expanded power that Trump has given them and the border patrol.
I agree. And the biggest thing that probably will happen under the Biden administration, if it happens, is probably just DACA is going to be renewed, and pretty much nothing else is going to change under immigration besides that.
I doubt that. I think there's a heavy movement for immigration reform that can happen through the unitary executive that people don't really focus on. And I think that, like, look, I don't see people as the sum total of their last worst action. I just don't. I understand people don't usually change, but we're talking about fundamental core characteristics. When we're talking about policy, if the underlying assumption of a political decision by a person like Biden, like say for example, if you were president, right? And at the time, your constituents that you represented believe that, look, we're not going to vote for you if you don't pass the Defense of Marriage Act. And we believe that we're not going to reelect you because you don't hold our, you know, our opinions, and you're supposed to represent us. So vote for the Defense of Marriage Act. And that's what Biden did. Now, do I think that he's turned on that? Do I think that he understands that that is not the right decision in 2020 to, go against gay marriage and the rights of LGBTQ? Obviously not. Pete Buttigieg endorsed him, and Pete Buttigieg is not the bastion of all LGBTQ people. But I'm just saying that, like, there is a political calculation that he formulates his policies on that doesn't make me as scared as a Trump presidency, a second term Trump presidency would. If the underlying political calculation that fuels his decisions is pretty much the same, which is I'm going to do whatever is going to get me the least amount in hot water, I'm going to go for that, right? Being in defense of the Defense of Marriage Act at the time that he was passing it, and same at the time he was supporting the Iraq War, was generally on the popular side. So I think that if we can persuade him to move to the left, as he has over and over again, he might not change as a person, but that's good because his underlying political assumption is like, look, I'm going to go as far as they let me.
Well, to be quite frank, I think that under a Biden administration, as we've already seen, there is some mental issues with him. Whether it's, I'm not saying it's Alzheimer's or whatever, but there's something clearly wrong with his head, considering all the blunders he's had on like live TV. I'm pretty sure that whoever his vice president is, that's gonna be the one that's making the majority of decisions during his administration. So it's gonna be like a Bush Cheney situation all over again.
Well,
or not necessarily his VP, but whoever's maybe someone in leadership, his chief of staff, his VP, something in that executive leadership is gonna take over.
Right. And my concern is that I think there is a lot of leeway in terms of what Trump can do in a second term that he's not been able to do in a first term. And I think that opening up that reign of power onto someone like a Trump is going to be very dangerous. We all know second term presidents are incredibly aggressive on passing their agenda, making sure they leave a legacy. And that's what scares me, is that, like, look, what are the biggest tenets of how he has been able to rally the base? One being the wall, two being the defense and expansion of free market capitalism, and basically the legacy he's going to leave behind is one of just backsliding of all the work that has been done.
But another aspect of this too that I'm finding really interesting is I'm waiting for this debate stage. And again, maybe there might not be one, maybe it's going to be virtual because of the coronavirus situation, but
oh, that'll be a fucking nightmare.
But we were discussing this earlier, like this was before like this relief package was passed, a $2.2 trillion relief package. You were talking about like potentially UBI, but it ended up becoming just a one-time $1,200 check. But they're going to pass another relief package pretty soon. They realize this relief package isn't enough. But whenever this relief package does happen, this secondary one to follow the initial one, if they implement socialist policies, which could happen because from my understanding, the Trump administration is like not opposed to things like UBI. And there's a situation where Biden is on the stage advocating against UBI. I think this is the beginning of a situation where our political systems realign, because it will be clear at that point the Democrats are no longer even liberally on the economic scale.
No.
Because at this point, it's always been, they're definitely,
nope.
Yeah, go ahead.
No.
What?
I don't think a realignment is happening. I think time and time again, we've seen that, okay, there have been missteps by Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer when negotiating these bills to get stimulus to direct Americans and also to individuals in the private sector who run large organizations, right? A a lot of people were critical of Nancy Pelosi means testing the stimulus that we are all getting, the $1,200 and so on and so forth. And I understand that, but I don't think, like, let's not forget, just because Trump is passing these policies doesn't mean that we fought for something even more than that. And in these policies and in these, these stimulus that have happened, Democrats have fought for a lot more government expansion than Trump has. Like, Trump has kept as much as bay as possible. Like, they wanted to, like, the Democratic Party wanted to implement like green technology stimulus package in this sustainable energy. And I understand the push to do that. I understand there is some wiggle room and some justifiable political opportunism. But to say that the party that passed the stimulus package is the Republican and the Republican president means there's a realignment. I don't see the realignment happening at all.
Well, again, it depends on what the content of that next relief package is, what I'm talking about.
Right.
Like, for example, if Nancy Pelosi again tries to pass the mean testing measures in there, because there's actually incentive for the Trump administration not to have means tested checks sent out. And the incentive is that if you don't have to mean test it, you can send out those checks a lot faster than having to check your databases to see who qualifies, who doesn't qualify.
Right.
And that's why they don't want to mean test it, because it means it takes a couple weeks versus a week to send it out.
Right. No, definitely agree on that. And I think that was a misstep by Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. I'm no fan of them, and I think they need to fucking leave, but I don't think that's going to happen because at the end of the day, they represent the establishment and they clearly won, and I think their momentum was building ever since Nancy Pelosi got to become Speaker of the House again. But now let's shift gears into Trump's response to COVID-19. Or did you want to touch on something else?
Well, I was going to touch on that too, but I was going to say, like, what are the dynamics now that we know it's Biden versus Trump, and also looking at it in the environment of Corona? Because in my opinion, sorry, you want to go?
Yeah. So let's set the benchmark of like what our thoughts on are Trump's response to the coronavirus, and then we can play off that into figuring out, what that would look like, how Biden would differ. And this coronavirus stuff isn't going to stop this year. It's going to go into next year, and whoever is the next president is going to deal with it. So I think it would be best to set the benchmark first, and then we could talk about what the differences could have been and the differences might be if Biden was to be elected, or if Trump is to remain president, what he would implement further on. But so I think Trump's response has not been great. I think it's honestly been, he's probably got blood on his hands. Definitely, I agree to that. But I think at the end of the day, right now, at this moment, is not the time to start playing the blame game. Because if you're playing that game right now of giving Trump a pat on the back on the right, or on the left, starting to blame him for everything, I don't think that is the most intuitive way to spend our mental bandwidth on trying to solve for this crisis. Because I could tell you right now, there are more articles being written on who's to blame within the Trump administration and Trump himself than there is to figure out where the hell are these masks, where the hell are these ventilators, what is our supply chain looking like, what is the timeline looking like, and why don't we have the denominator data that says that how many people will be able to not infect asymptomatically. Like, there are tons of unanswered questions on this. Is just like Puerto Rico all over. Oh wait, sorry, Costa Rica or Puerto Rico? This is remember the crisis?
Yeah, Puerto Rico. Yeah,
Puerto Rico. Remember when they were hit with
throwing the towels out? Yeah,
throwing the towels out, and it was like there was bottles of water already went foul sitting on the tarmac because of logistical problems. Like, nobody was writing about that. Everybody was writing about how Trump fucked it up, how Trump made a fool of himself. I'm like, no, that's not what I care about. Like, I understand that's a narrative and a story.
So,
right. So
I agree with you. Okay. When we're talking about mistakes, okay, I agree. It's a waste of time to talk about things that could have been done but aren't done. Okay. It's the past is behind us. There's nothing we can do.
No.
However,
that's not
I am in favor of critiquing the administration for doing mistakes that are currently ongoing and are actively hurting the situation. For example, I think the media should talk about how Trump is promoting a drug right now that has a lot of side effects for people who have heart issues when there are 10 other alternative drugs. And the fact of the matter is that Trump has an actual incentive to promote this drug because he holds stock in this French pharmaceutical company. So I think it's okay for the media to focus on that, but to focus on the things like, oh, we could have been making ventilators 2 months ago. Yes, I hear you. We could have been doing that, but at that point, it's what are we going to do? It's too late, you know.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not on the team of let's stop criticizing him. I'm on the team of look, we need to take it one day at a time, and we need to stop reacting to everything he says, and we need to look at the policies and criticize those. We need to stop going back in January, stop going back to December, stop going back to February and what he could have done. And we need to stop with patting him on the back for like, oh, people are saying, well, maybe he wasn't that good, or maybe he wasn't, his initial response wasn't that great, but his response is getting better. And I think he's listening to experts even more. And I think the biggest issue arises when we feel that we need to give Trump a participation trophy and a state fair ribbon on most improved, like some sort of elementary school, rally that's happening where we point out the most improved student. Like the fact that we have to do that probably indicates that we wouldn't have done that for Obama. We wouldn't have. I'll tell you that right now. If Obama made the exact same statements and the exact same policies, we would not be saying he improved a lot. I would not be saying he's most improved. I'd say, all right, let's get better. I don't just where he is right now, and he's gotten better and faster and quicker at responding. Now's not the time to pat him on the back. Now's not the time for complacency. It's like telling the person who's losing weight, wow, you've lost a lot of weight. You look so great. And the person who's trying to lose weight sees that as oh, I don't have to work out today. Somebody told me I look great as it is right now. And like that mentality cannot continue for Trump because, again, that complacency arises, right? And I think more people are not, I think in terms of patting him on the back and criticizing him, a lot more people are criticizing him, which ideally is politically opportunistic for our side. But at the end of the day, I think the mental bandwidth of the American people is so stretched with the amount of information about COVID that they're not getting versus what they are getting is problematic for me. I'm willing to forego the criticisms of Trump and his inactions in the months prior for relative information about the coronavirus epidemic that people need to get, right? And I think even discussing Trump and any action he took 2 weeks ago, anything past the last 2 weeks, is a waste of time right now, April 9th, right now.
I get what you're saying. There basically is so much information that's there to inform the people and make sure they're safe that it's negligent to be talking about anything else besides that because there's just so much information to go around right now.
Exactly. And I think that yeah, it is basically about an information overload that people are dealing with right now. That it's the same situation. Why the same thing that gets people politically disengaged is because there's always news coming out of Washington D.C. even when there was a slow news cycle, right? And I think now is not the time when there's such a flood of information. Like basically, people want to be updated on the up-to-date death count and recovery count and infection rate of other countries, not just our own. And what that tells me is that, okay, you know how many people are infected, recovered, and dead due to COVID-19 in South Korea, Italy. That's smart and great. But do you know the rate at which we're testing in this country? Do you know the logistical supply chain limitations that are basically making it so you can't get a face mask? Like, if you don't even know the answers to those simple questions about what's happening in your local area, then that surprises me to figure out that the biggest stories are Trump and the global death count, right? Because we should know what the hell's happening in Fremont and Newark and why the hell I can't go into like drugstores and find medical grade masks, even though Gavin Newsom says there's 35 million of them, right? Like, where did he distribute them? Are they sitting in a warehouse? Where can I get one? Because 35 million is way more than the health workers need, right? Is he going to clarify? Like, I need to be able to get that information from New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, major publications, not thick policy briefs that the average person can't sift through because of the legalese that's in there, right? But it's easier to consume drama about Trump's inaction in the last 2 months than it is about figuring out relevant information that might save a fucking life.
Yeah, and you're right. It is important. And not just because of that, it's because also the information changes from time to time. from the very beginning, if you remember early on, they were saying don't. There's no point in getting masks. The masks don't do anything to protect you.
Yeah.
Then they later changed it like, oh, wear the mask because it'll even if you don't have it, if you wear it, you prevent it from spreading in case you have it. And then they changed it like, oh, wear the mask because it may prevent you from even getting it. So like it just keeps changing and changing and changing. And I think it's important that people be aware because, you and me, we watch the news constantly, so we're aware of these updates that happen 24/7.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people who just watch the news passively. So maybe they're only aware of news that was like from 2 weeks ago, and they're not up to date. So that's why it's important that they're not just looking at the death count; they're looking at the actual information for safety precautions in order to better ensure that they don't catch the coronavirus in the future.
I bet you that Facebook articles get tenfold more page views than the CDC or the WHO, which is primary information for many of those news sites. So I would say it's not necessarily like a lack of information. I think it's just the fact that the focus on the current mainstream media is so toxic and it's so unhelpful. I think sprinkling in washing your hands between every sentence about Trump's tweet from 2 weeks ago is not the justification for focusing on the drama that exists. Like the idea that we need to report on the president is a justification that has allowed for mainstream media to basically undercover every major direct impact that has happened to average American person. I think that the rigmarole of responding to every single Trump tweet that is problematic by mainstream media has basically made it so that we have been blinded by many things that's happened in the last 4 years of the Trump administration. Wouldn't you say that?
Or not even, yeah, I agree with you. I 100%. But the other thing I was going to say is like, not beyond the focus on Trump, there's also a focus on what should I say? I was going to bring up the example of CNN, and CNN obviously has Chris Cuomo on there as an anchor, and his brother is the governor of New York. They've been having his brother come on every night, and they're not even talking about Corona like half the time. They're just exchanging jokes about like, oh, I'm mom's favorite. I'm the most favorite son. Mom loves me the most. And like, I get it's supposed to drive laughs and stuff to like show like we got two brothers on the news cycle right now. But who's that helping? Like, you're the goddamn news. You're not supposed to be doing that right now. You're supposed to be focusing on the information, getting people to think, not like this bickering that people find humorous.
I'm not that against it because look, I feel like that draws people into the news. I'm not that cool.
No, I wasn't against it initially too, but they're bringing it on almost every night now, and that's where it's problematic. The first 2 times, okay, fine. And the other night too, like they were asking him things like, oh, now that Bernie dropped out, are you considering running for president now? I'm like, God damn it. Like, really?
I saw that today. Yeah. It's so stupid. Like, why does that matter? Why does anything in the next 3 months matter? Why does anything in the last 2 months matter? In that last 3 months and next 2 months, all I care about is what are the policies and what are the presidential memos? What are the, unique, direct policies that affect everyday Californians and Americans in the last week and in the upcoming week. If they've been telling us to take it day by day, how about they follow their own fucking advice and take the news day by day, right? And I think the 24-hour news cycle is also very problematic, where it's forced them to talk about everything, and the juiciest topics is the one that gets the most coverage, which is like the Trump statements of stupidity and the Cuomo brothers going at it, right? And I think the main problem ends up being is that you cannot pander to average people's attention span. No matter what, you have to fight it. I don't care if it gets views, I don't care if it gets any of that. As long as the information is out there, then we can blame the people. Then I can go to my mom, dad, or sister. Then I can go to my my immediate friends and say like, look, they've been talking about logistical supply chain issues for the last week, and they've been talking about how they can get resolved in the next week. So I got my mask on time, and if because you didn't listen to the fucking news, you just didn't listen to Governor Gavin Newsom's order that all Walgreens are going to get the N95 masks at this particular day, and this is when they're going to start distributing it to your local community. Just because you guys forgot to get the mask, and you guys didn't listen to the news, that's your fault. Make it the people's fault. Now it's like, I can't even blame average people, because where do they get that information? Do I really expect them to sift through the governor orders, the policy briefs that these orders come in? Like, do I really expect them to do that? No, the news is supposed to dissect and basically prioritize what people need to know. And they're not doing that. They're not. And I don't even care if versus the millions of people who watch the Cuomo brothers go at it versus the 350,000 people that would watch something that breaks down the governor orders and the presidential orders of how all these supplies are being distributed to hospitals. Like, as long as they're reporting it, I can't blame the media. I want to blame the people. I want to blame ignorance and basically target ignorance.
Oh, you're on the same page. Like I'm on the same page. I usually like to target the people, because usually the information is there. It's just they're not doing the research themselves to like actually like consume it and like dissect it. But this is the first time the media is acting negligent. They are not doing their job properly, and because that, I think they're exacerbating the situation. Like, they have to take this role seriously. They have a critical role in this pandemic, and if they don't take their job seriously, this pandemic's going to last much longer than it needs to be. And hopefully they get their shit together soon.
I know we're supposed to be a commentary channel, and we're supposed to dissect media and news and kind of sift through some of the bullshit that's been happening and call upon it. And that's the main modus operandi of the show. But honestly, I'm significantly considering spending time going through the raw first-person initial data and going through the policy briefs and going through the studies and going through the governor's orders and all the things I can find out about the lack of logistical supply chains to average consumer. Because at this point, we are going to get those comments about, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't, if you feel that mainstream media is so bad, why not? And look, let them learn and let them continue. And if we find that we cannot find out relevant information about why America is still lacking in critical medical supply, fuck it, we'll do it. We'll give it to you. We might consider doing that ourselves. And I might consider with Lamar about, just getting into that type of news and getting into a true journalistic expedition on finding the facts and sifting them for you. Because if the mainstream media is not going to do it for the average American, then you know what? It's alternative media like us and other people are going to have to pick up the slack. And and if we don't see a change soon, then we'll do it. We'll answer the
I was actually noticing that, like, everyone keeps talking about alternative media as like the thing that's going to be taking over soon, like in terms of new media. But I think I was like maybe a GoFundMe or like some sort of fundraising campaign that was trying to raise money for a new platform. It's 24/7 news, but it's literally just the facts, no opinions. I'm like, that's crazy. I can't.
Not possible. No one's gonna watch that. I'll tell you right now, no one's gonna watch that.
I know, but there's some people. I think you're downplaying that there's some people listen to news just as something down in the background and they want to listen to it. And I think for people who are doing that, this would be ideal for them.
Look, the second there's no way to sift to, because there's no such thing as facts anymore. Like there's
always going to be a narrative somewhat entwined. Yeah,
exactly. So we live in the world of this kind of postmodern-esque interpretation of reality, where so it's a longer conversation about how the advertising industry has basically made it so that any negative situation can be turned into a positive, and any positive situation can be turned into negative. It's a very postmodern quality about words and how they can be misused and misrepresented, and how like organic, non-GMO, all these like terms that we've allowed to come into our lexicon, have basically made it so that we can't even, we don't even understand what we're consuming, like eating we think is a basic thing. Like, when you see non-GMO, most of these meats don't have antibiotics or any of these growth hormones in them. Most of this stuff has just been bred. Like chickens have been bred to basically become fat and fully grown within weeks versus the usual months it would take, right? So like just because it's non-GMO doesn't mean it's organic. It's very, very artificial, and they can slap non-GMO organic on top of it and basically run away with it. And the same thing's happening with the news media. So, basically, the big point of this is that like, look, we will engage in original journalism and start like actually looking at primary evidence if we have to. That's something that we didn't initially set out to do, but I'm willing to do it if we don't find that mainstream media is willing to do it.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't mean to take away from what you're saying right now, but I just want to mention that I do have to get going in a bit. But I think we should talk one last part about the election and coming forward between Biden and Trump, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I've been speculating ever since Bernie dropped out the other day, and as we noted, we don't know how long this coronavirus is going to last, how long the social distancing measures will be in place. But I think it's safe to say it's going to be at least till August, potentially. That's what I'm feeling. And in that scenario, usually at this time, it would be towards the summer where the rallies start happening, the presidential rallies. And as we know, Donald Trump lives for these rallies. These things are like the foundation and like livelihood of his like campaign, especially in 2016 when we're looking at that. Obviously, he has the advantage now because he's the incumbent in office, but this also works to Biden's benefit as well because, as we've noted, Biden doesn't necessarily live on the debate stage. He doesn't live at the rallies. That's not where his inner spirit is. His inner spirit, where his core support comes from, is the nostalgia from when he was vice president with Obama. It comes from nostalgia of his debates and his performance when he was going against Paul Ryan and Sarah Palin. Because during those debates, he did fairly well. He actually was much more better. And if we had that Biden running from 2008 to 2012 and 2020 or I guess 2020, I think he would have been the front runner from the very beginning. But at the end of the day, he didn't manage to take over. And I think he's just living off that nostalgia. And maybe this coronavirus might work in favor of Biden because he doesn't have to show his face as much. And all we're doing is looking upon his previous records to analyze them, or at least the voters are.
I think now it's time where words matter because there's so much information out there and what Trump is saying. And if you allow Trump to be Trump and there's no back check on the shit he says going off script, I think it's great for Biden, honestly. Biden can read a script, 7 Ways to Sunday. He is such a mannequin when it comes to that. I mean, sometimes
can he read a script?
I mean, when he's going off the cuff, obviously, but like, you could definitely read a script way better than Trump can. I could tell you that for sure. Like starting to triple speak and repeat words during the State of the Union. I don't see Biden doing that as much as Trump did that, the going on for 3 hours. But like my thing is, I feel like every single Western leader in this crisis has gained a popularity rating averaging anywhere from 10 to almost 15%. Some European leaders getting a bump of almost 20% approval rating. And Trump got a 5% increase, but he's back right at 43, 42% at 538. Aggregate poll of that takes every single poll in the United States of popularity and unpopularity rating. Mm-hmm. And his highest ever was around 45 average. And that was in the beginning of his presidency, and it's always just gone down and plateaued. And it picked up a little bit in January and February around the turn of the pandemic. He got a little bump at 44%, but then went back down. So what that means is that I feel that Trump has wasted a political opportunity to really become a leader. As Van Jones would like to say at every single State of the Union that Trump gives, that, this is the time he became presidential. This was a genuine moment where he can become presidential. I mean, look at every single natural disaster. Presidents tend to do usually well. They usually pick up a few points, sometimes in the double digits. Definitely Bush 9/11 comes to mind.
Yeah, definitely a missed opportunity. But again, I want to ask you, like, the fact that there's probably not going to be rallies for these presidential campaigns in the coming months, who does that most benefit?
Listen, I think rallies are important, and I think the enthusiasm and the numbers that Bernie drew were also kind of like a marker of, wow, he's going to do really well. And I think rallies are kind of overstated. They're very important in primaries, but I don't think in the general it's going to be a big reason why people win. Definitely rallies are opportunities to get your message out. And I think Trump used rallies in his Republican primaries to kind of energize his voter base and bring new people to the side, because he was very, very much making it an honest. Trump's rallies weren't just rallies; they were like a display of pure honesty that many people haven't seen in an event that they expect to be scripted. And I think that's what made Trump rallies so powerful. But at the end of the day, now that he speaks from an area of authority and he's still the same guy that he was at the rallies for the most part, I don't think the rally effect that Trump might have had is all that going to be powerful, because people always seek the new and the ephemeral, and seeing Trump go off in a rally is just old news at this point. So I don't think the effect is going to be as potent, but could I say some loss for Trump? Yeah. On a differential, yeah, I do see that Biden getting a win out of the fact that Trump can't rally.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was feeling too. And again, as I mentioned, I feel like for Biden, he doesn't even need the rallies. He was doing better without them. I think when people see the rallies, they actually start to question like his performance of whether or not he can be effective as president.
This was a modus operandi of the entire campaign, where basically like low exposure, low visibility, and we can just get off of the specter or the idea that people think they have about Biden. It worked.
All right, Manveer. Good conversation. I gotta cut it right here. I gotta go downstairs and feed my dog. But this format, I really enjoyed it, and I hope our audience enjoyed it. Anything we should do next time that's different, in your opinion?
Yeah, so next time what we're going to have is more visuals. I'm going to try to live bring up the articles that we're discussing, some of the graphs that we talk about, and really fix that. So we'll probably be back within the next couple of days once there's more updates. And I mean, I really like this format. We're going to continue to increase the quality of audio and video, of course. But yeah, so this is how the Misinformed Truth is going to be for the foreseeable future. It's obviously going to have a little bit more razzle-dazzle, a little bit more organization in terms of not just content, but also presentation. So we're going to get better. And that's pretty much what we have to say. So thank you to all who still subscribe to us on, the various platforms that we have. We really thank you for holding out. I know there are a handful of people that I can count on my hand that have asked me about where's the podcast, especially in these times right now where it's so news dense. So we are doing this for you. All right, Lamar, I'll catch you on the next one, and peace out and stay safe.
Yep, you too. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.